Hey guys, I can't really record at my house to demonstrate how I play Cyberpunk because currently I am still settling into my new house. I've just moved and it's being renovated pretty much. Little side note, my room is now complete, but it took longer than I anticipated, hence why the video came out late. However, I can explain it here, and meanwhile, I will put some screen recording of my demonstration, I guess. Now, in my previous video, I mentioned that I will be very disappointed in CD Projekt Red if they don't actually implement any accessibility features, of which I actually gave some suggestions in a formal letter that I sent to their headquarters. Not only did I not get a response, to my knowledge, again, if you saw my previous video, you know that I included a different email address, which I didn't actually check yet, so maybe they've responded. However, a better response would be to actually implement those accessibility features so I wouldn't feel that way. And also so that blind and sight-impaired gamers like myself could easily play the game. They did not add anything like that. And it's a big shame, it's a big embarrassment, and corporations like CD Projekt Red should learn better, especially considering they literally made a game about corporations not treating you well. A little hypocritical, isn't it? Now again, it might take some time for them to actually learn and implement adequate accessibility features, like with Mojang, or Mojang, or however you say it, who created Minecraft. Originally, they didn't have enough accessibility features, which prompted me to take initiative and create my own resource pack for sight-impaired players, which they could implement into the game and make all the textures of the game either simpler or high contrast. Now, in newer versions of Minecraft, you can see much more accessibility options, including a high contrast filter, which makes the textures high contrast, as well as a high contrast hitbox when you look at certain blocks, and other similar very useful features. It's not enough, but it's much more than what was included before I actually created said resource pack. That does not mean that it should take ages for a game to be available to everyone, to sight-impaired players, to disabled players who actually need that additional aid in games. Naughty Dog could do it with The Last of Us and what was the other game? Yeah, I forgot the other game, but it was made by Naughty Dog. I'm pretty sure it's the one that the film with Tom Holland is based on, I'm pretty sure. Side note again, the game I was referring to was Uncharted. But that was made by Naughty Dog, and I've heard there's great accessibility features in that. And I know from first-hand experience that The Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2 have amazing, if not the best, accessibility features out of any video game that I have ever played. Why can't CDPR do that? You're a big company. So is Naughty Dog. So is Sony. Sony and Naughty Dog could do that. And with all the bad things that Sony has done in the past, I am very surprised that I praise Sony for once. Sony is very good at doing this, because not only Naughty Dog does this, but also Insomniac when they made Spider-Man, as well as Ratchet and Clank. I'm pretty sure that's also Insomniac, and it has many accessibility features. CDPR, do better, mate. Mate, Steven, there's loads of you. There's loads of you, so how can not a single person in your corporation even bother to add something that would actually be helpful? Enough of the negatives though, let's talk about the positives. The new auto drive feature is somewhat useful for me because I don't have to stare an inch away from the screen to actually move anywhere when it comes to cars. Granted, it's still a terrible situation when it comes to navigating by foot, or even when you come across a conflict or fight in-game which prompts the auto drive to turn off. But I admit auto drive is a good enough feature for me to actually make good use of it if it does stop me from looking an inch away from the screen at the minimap only to crash into a pedestrian. That's somewhat helpful, so thanks for that. Also, thanks to the ability to actually create and upload mods for the game, more specifically Cyber Engine tweaks and Red EXT, I can zoom in with a certain shortcut on my mouse. Now, because I have a Razer mouse, I have the ability to customize the buttons on the mouse. So I customized one of them and binded it to a shortcut that can turn the magnifier on and off. That way, when I play Cyberpunk and it's set to borderless windowed mode, I can use that key to zoom into the screen. Now, the only issue is that quite often when I do need to zoom into the screen, it's when I'm on my in-game telephone, when I try to read a text message, or when I read a shard. For those moments, quite often, the mouse disappears. When the mouse disappears off the screen in the game, it is usually centered, which means that I can't move it anywhere on the screen, where usually, if I have the magnifier turned on, I can. That's what lets me actually move to various locations on the screen so that I can read things from, say, left to right. But I can't do that usually in the game. What I have to do is activate the CET menu, the mod menu, with another specific keybind to actually make the mouse appear, and only then can I activate the magnifier. Side note again, I forgot the keybind for the mod, so instead I used a Windows shortcut, which was Alt and Tab, or Windows and Tab, which basically got me onto the magnifier, making the magnifier program on top of Cyberpunk, making the mouse appear. Then when I need to scroll down on a phone, for example, I need to deactivate the CET settings and scroll down and then activate them again. That's my solution that I came up with to actually read the shards or text messages in a way. However, I shouldn't have to go through all this hassle to play a game properly. Good developers like Naughty Dog or Insomniac, or even the plethora of games that were specifically made for blind people that can easily be found on Steam, they could do that. They could add features. So why can't you CD Projekt Red? Why can't you? Why can't such a big organization, such a corporation that makes AAA games, can't even think to add useful accessibility features and have to resort to mods or shortcuts on a mouse? It's ridiculous. You should feel ashamed of yourself. And honestly, do better. If it comes to Witcher 4 or the new Cyberpunk game, whenever it comes out, and there still isn't accessibility features, that's honestly pointless. You're shunning away a massive community of yours. And again, someone did mention on the Cyberpunk Discord server, but when I say it's discrimination that features like that aren't added, someone said it's not. It is. Because you're purposefully shunning away and ignoring blind people who you know are players of your game. And when you can easily add settings to your game that can make the game for blind people, sight impaired people like me, just that little bit easier to play. Because physically we can see it better, whether it's high contrast or larger text. Learn from your mistakes and don't do it ever again. And fix your goddamn game, because it's still not even fixed. And despite people praising that since the launch the game's been fixed, it hasn't. Look at the truth. It still hasn't been fixed. Honestly, fix that goddamn game of yours. It's getting ridiculous. And use your damn brains. That's it.